Children, the bedrock of the Granite State. Something we'd like you all to think about. Within a single generation, we went from not being able to imagine we'd even land on the moon to walking around with computers in our pockets, our smartphones, that have more computing power than the lunar module did. Also, another thing to think about, a child born today will graduate from high school in 2039. What in the world is 2039 going to look like? We know that many young children today will hold jobs that haven't even been invented yet. So, how do we prepare them for the complex world they're going to inherit? That's what we're going to talk about to you today. We've had the opportunity to learn about the science of early childhood development, and we have a new understanding of exactly why the early years are so important. And we'd like to share with you what we've learned by telling you a story about development, why it matters, what actually develops, and how development is either facilitated or derailed, and what we can do about that. I think you'll find the story pretty compelling. Today we have Katie Brissett, our Deputy Director of Early Learning New Hampshire, who will talk to you about this story. And how do you do? I'm Jackie Cowell, the Executive Director of Early Learning New Hampshire. We'd be delighted to bring this presentation to you into your communities. If you have a Rotary Club or a Chamber of Commerce, a school board, perhaps the parents you serve, you'd like to show this presentation of Children, the Bedrock of the Granite State, we'd be glad to help you do that. When we go out, we often show pictures of the leaders in the communities. So Scott Spradling, our board president, we showed them growing up. When we went to the Nashua Rotary Club, we showed the picture of Mike Aquino growing up. And we'd be delighted to do that with you and arrange a presentation if you'd like one live. So here's Katie Brissett.
The bedrock of the Granite State. The future prosperity of New Hampshire depends on our ability to steward the next generation who will live, work, and lead in our state. We know that the healthy development of children provides a strong foundation for healthy and competent adulthood, responsible citizenship, economic productivity, strong communities, and a sustainable society. In short, capable children are the bedrock of a strong and prosperous Granite State. Our future depends on them. What develops? The brain's architecture. Like a house, the brain is built from the bottom up. Early experiences set the foundation for the architecture of the maturing brain, establishing a sturdy or fragile base for all the development that follows. The basic architecture of the brain is constructed through a process that begins early in life and continues into adulthood. While genes provide the basic blueprint, experiences influence how and whether genes are expressed. Together, they shape the quality of brain architecture, establishing a sturdy or fragile foundation for what follows. Because more complex skills are built on top of simple skills, it is critical to make the foundations as strong as possible. So, clearly, getting things right the first time is easier than trying to fix them later. This 90-second video from the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard demonstrates basic foundational concepts that are built upon decades of developmental science and recent advances in neuroscience, molecular biology, and genomics. These advances give us a much better understanding of how early experiences are built into our bodies and brains for better or for worse, with lifelong consequences for learning, behavior, and health.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
So again, brains are built from the bottom up. As you just heard, early experiences literally affect the architecture of the developing brain, and skill begets skill. And brain growth occurs more rapidly in early childhood than any other period of life. During the first few years of life, 700 new synapses or neural connections are formed every second. After a period of rapid increases in connections, the brain needs to become more efficient, or it would be overwhelmed. Connections that are not used are pruned away, like cutting back an overgrown shrub. Early experiences determine which circuits are reinforced through frequent use and which are pruned through lack of use. Some people refer to this as use it or lose it. How does development happen? Serve and return relationships. Strong brain architecture is formed by the serve and return relationships children have with supportive adults. When children reach out for connections and communications, and adults reciprocate, this back and forth process wires the brain with the connections needed for healthy brain architecture. So this serve and return is similar to a game of tennis, volleyball, or playing catch. One person serves, the other responds. You need two people, each responding in kind. Serve and return works best within a trusting relationship between a child and an adult who is responsive to the child's own unique individuality. These mutually rewarding interactions are essential for the development of healthy brain circuits and increasingly complex skills. This next 90-second video from Harvard illustrates just how the serve and return interaction shapes the brain's development.
The key to forming strong brain architecture is what's known as serve and return interaction with adults. In this developmental game, new neural connections form in the brain as young children instinctively serve through babbling, facial expressions, and gestures. And adults return the serve, responding in a very directed, meaningful way. It starts very early in life, when a baby coos and the adult interacts and directs the baby's attention to a face or hand. This interaction forms the foundation of brain architecture upon which all future development will be built. It helps create neural connections between all the different areas of the brain, building the emotional and cognitive skills children need in life. For example, here's how it works for literacy and language skills. When the baby sees an object, the adult says its name. This makes connections in the baby's brain between particular sounds and their corresponding objects. Later, adults show young children that those objects and sounds can also be represented by marks on a page. With continued support from adults, children then learn how to decipher writing and eventually to write themselves. Each stage builds on what came before. Ensuring that children have adult caregivers who consistently engage and serve in return interaction, beginning in infancy, builds a foundation in the brain for all the learning, behavior, and health that follow.
As Katie pointed out, we are literally wired for connection. So what derails development? Toxic stress. Unlike mild, short-lived stress that can be good for growth, certain types of stress can actually weaken the brain's architecture. Experiences such as exposure to violence and others can cause toxic stress responses in the brain with lifelong consequences in health, learning, and behavior. But supportive adults can buffer that toxic stress, reducing or preventing its effects. Learning how to cope with adversity is an important part of healthy development. Moderate, short-lived stress responses in the body, as we mentioned, can promote growth, but toxic stress, that is the strong, chronic, and unrelieved activation of the body's stress management system in the absence of protective adult support. These toxic stress responses caused by, for example, exposure to violence, abuse, or chronic neglect can weaken the architecture of the developing brain and have long-term consequences for learning behavior and both physical and mental health. This last 90-second video from Harvard illustrates how toxic stress can derail development.
Learning to deal with stress is an important part of healthy development. When experiencing stress, the stress response system is activated. The body and brain go on alert. There's an adrenaline rush, increased heart rate, and an increase in stress hormone levels. When the stress is relieved after a short time, or a young child receives support from caring adults, the stress response winds down and the body quickly returns to normal. In severe situations, such as ongoing abuse and neglect, where there is no caring adult to act as a buffer against the stress response stays activated. Even when there is no apparent physical harm, the extended absence of response from adults can activate the stress response system. Constant activation of the stress response overloads developing systems, with serious, lifelong consequences for the child. This is known as toxic stress. Over time, this results in a stress response system set permanently on high alert. In the areas of the brain dedicated to learning and reasoning, the neural connections that comprise brain architecture are weaker and fewer in number. Science shows that the prolonged activation of stress hormones in early childhood can actually reduce neural connections in these important areas of the brain at just the time when they should be growing new ones. Toxic stress can be avoided if we ensure that the environments in which children grow and develop are nurturing, stable, and engaging.
Adults who have 7 to 8 ACEs, called adverse childhood experiences, are 3 times as likely to have heart disease than those with no ACEs growing up. The research findings presented here, again commonly known as the ACE study, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. They show us that not only does early adversity impact early functioning, as we've been talking about, but early adversity actually gets built into the body. It has lifelong effects on physical health. This graph shows that the adults who recall having 7 or 8 serious adverse experiences in childhood are 3 times as likely to have cardiovascular disease as an adult. Other related studies are now linking significant adversity in childhood to increased risk of a range of other health issues, including diabetes, hypertension, stroke, obesity, and some forms of cancer. This chart shows that there's over a 90% chance of developmental delays when children experience 6 to 7 ACEs. risk factors such as child maltreatment, exposure to domestic violence, caregiver mental illness or substance misuse, poverty, other factors that are ACEs can have that cumulative effect. Again, in this study, children exposed to as many as 6 additional risks faced a 90 to 100% likelihood of having one or more delays in their cognitive, language, or emotional development. If you're interested in learning more about how ACEs are here in New Hampshire, what the findings are, there's some good studies. You can find it here, nhchilddata.org. This is a terrific web site that not only gives you information about ACEs, but all the other things you see in the bubble here. Each circle here represents an environment that shapes a child's development. The most immediate environments are there in the center, such as family and school, to broader environments such as housing and parents' work factors, economic trends, and public policy in the outer rings. Organizing the data in this way allows us to consider the variety of environments that affect child well-being. So we do hope you'll go to this website and start exploring by clicking on a topic of interest to you, which will then lead you to a page of indicators. So what's the solution? The solution is innovation in the early years. We need together to create a system that builds those strong foundations for healthy development we've been talking about and invests in the earliest experiences to maximize serve and return interactions and reduce toxic stress. We can catch children before they fall. We know what works. We simply have to close the gap between what we know and what we do. So the earlier we start, the greater the return. Not surprisingly, preventive intervention is more efficient and produces more favorable outcomes than later remediation. Here you see James Heckman. He is the 2000 Nobel laureate in economic sciences, and he has calculated a 7 to 10% return on investment for programs that target those earliest years. This return on investment is for the individual, but the lion's share of the benefit is to the public. As Dr. Heckman reminds us, the least expensive problem to fix is the one you prevent from happening in the first place. We want to point out to you that there is a New Hampshire strategic plan for early childhood, and it represents a roadmap for policy priorities for New Hampshire's youngest children and their families. In June of 2020, this document was published. Early childhood public and private stakeholders developed these policy priorities in health, in early learning, and in family support, grounded in the science of what children need for health and well-being. We hope you will use this also as your guide and your roadmap. We'd like to point out that all of us can do our part, and here are 4 actions New Hampshire leaders can take. We'd love to have you help spread the word. As we mentioned earlier, the bedrock of the Granite State presentation, all the science that we have been talking about can be shared with others. Please help us spread the word. We'd be glad to come to your, as we said, your local Rotary Club or your local school board. Wherever you think this message should be delivered, we'd be glad to do it with you. Please connect and get involved. Know the early childhood programs and services in your community. Get to know them, get involved, join a board. We really think that's going to be really terrific for leaders to do, and take a stand. Early Learning New Hampshire and our partners can help you take all of these actions. If you're interested in calling an elected official or writing an op-ed, etc., we can help you do that. We'd love to have your help doing that. And also, if you're interested in supporting and spurring innovation, as we've been mentioning, we urge you to contact the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, which has a terrific initiative called New Hampshire Tomorrow that is really investing wisely in helping to promote early childhood development, one of its top priorities. We hope you'll consider that. We'd like to also turn your attention to something doable you can do now. If you love a child, a baby through a 5-year-old in your life, we really suggest you go to Vroom. And so Vroom is a really wonderful strength-based application. It can turn your shared moments into brain-building moments. The moments you're already spending with your child, whether it's mealtime, bath time, any time in between, there are always ways to nurture our children's growing minds. When we talk with them and interact with them, that back and forth communication you've heard us talk about, it's not just their eyes that light up, it's their brains. And the more we do it, the better. And this free, no ad app is a terrific way to get real concrete ideas of what you can do. If you're standing in line at the grocery store and your little one's fidgety, here's an idea. You just go to your app and ask for a suggestion. If you're changing diapers, here's a great idea. If you're doing the laundry, another great idea. So again, go to vroom.org, VROOM, join vroom.org, and you can go ahead. It's a free app. It's terrific. Once you use it with your grandparent, a parent, a mom or dad, a neighbor, a niece, a nephew, an uncle and aunt, it's wonderful to use this. Lastly, and before we start to wrap up, go to the public awareness page of earlylearningnh.org. There are many more resources besides this, Children, the Bedrock of the Granite State, that show why the early years matter. You can see an ACEs video short that you can show. There is a terrific video of New Hampshire leaders on the importance of the early years and more helpful Bedrock and Vroom materials.
So how would the lives of children facing risks today be different if we invested in effective early childhood programs starting at birth? Watch this short video and see, through the voices of the children themselves, just how powerful the change can be.
That's me at 4 months old. I'm one of the thousands of little miracles born into poverty every day. That's my mom. She's 17 and never finished high school. She's got some big dreams for me, but she's alone and she's scared.
This is my first birthday. That's my grandma, my cousin Tanya, and her boyfriend Kevin. We all live together. It's cold and crowded. I hope we move soon. I don't like Kevin. He's always yelling. This is my second birthday. We're all at daycare, strapped in watching TV again. I wish I could just run around.
This is my third birthday. My brother William's taking care of me while my mom sleeps. She works the night shift, so we can't turn up the TV, but we get to go to bed whenever we want.
This is my fourth birthday. We're sleeping at my aunt's this month. I don't know when my dad is coming home, but I'm hungry and I miss him. This is my fifth birthday. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm unprepared. Because I didn't get the right start. I'm twice as likely to be in special education.
30% more likely to never go to college.
70% more likely to be arrested for a violent crime.
Become a teen parent.
Drop out of school. Never hold a job. Spend the rest of my life in poverty.
My mom plays with me all the time. She smiles a lot now, and she knows she's not alone anymore.
Grandma, Tanya, and Kevin read me a story every night before I go to bed. I go to my school every day, where I get to run and play and see all my new friends.
Will and I go to preschool together. Today we learned about dinosaurs and played a counting game.
Every morning, my dad and I brush our teeth and eat breakfast together. We have our own place now, and I know we'll always be together. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm rested, I'm eager, I'm confident, I'm curious, I'm prepared.
I'm ready. I am your future. Change the first 5 years, and you change everything. Anyone interested in investing?
We'll be delighted to help you with any actions you may want to take, including filling out a commitment form. Email us at info@earlylearningnh.org or call us at 603-226-7900. On behalf of New Hampshire's youngest children and their families, thank you.
Thank you so much.